Here we go.
BigTuck sucks. Hey guys, welcome to episode 103 of CMD Tower's Brews and Builds. I'm Mr. Commodore 5, and my fellow host is quite the Hydra omnivore, considering he couldn't even wait for a proper 3-2-1 before cracking his beer. BigTuck.
Okay, first off, I thought my claps were off, but I thought I lost like a superpower. It's like when Wolverine stops healing, or like the people of the Spider-Verse don't trust in Peter Parker anymore, and then he loses his powers. I thought my mega clap had gone the way of the dinosaur.
Jeez.
Or perhaps gone the way of the Hydra. Hello, Mr. Combo. I am having my one beer on this before I go to Run Club in the 95-degree heat in Charlotte. It is true. I thought I just got lucky, and no, it is boiling hot here. My car's hot. But yes, I'm still alive, got my dip in, hanging out. How are you, sir?
Well, better question, is your car drivable?
So I went with the leather seats intentionally with a dark package, and I like leather seats because I'm always sweaty, but then it turns into this like, what do they call it? The Ouroboros, if you will, which is like the snake that eats its own tail, of like, every time I get in my car now, I get sweaty because my seats are hot. And there's no ventilation through them. So it's like, a real chicken or the egg situation.
Good Lord. But no, I'm good.
You went with the leather package. Truck talk. You went with the leather package as well, right?
I mean, I've gone with the leather package with all of my cars since 2008.
Absolutely. Yeah, because you're not some sort of psychopath.
I know. Well, and cloth, just like, for me, it's more the cloth smell. Over time, cloth just builds up all the dead skin,
especially
that's
if
fallen
you're
off your body.
Big sweaty man like you or I.
Yes, that is correct. And so your car just gets like this ranky, stinky smell.
Do you remember so I always thought, you remember the first 4Runner, right?
I mean, the high school 4Runner?
Yeah, the one that you put the dent in the hood on when you jumped on it that one time?
Maybe.
Yeah, we all have fond memories of that. But I choose not to live in the past. However, so it always smelled like dog, which I don't think is my fault because I went and got it detailed and it still smelled like dog. But I also remember always carting around rugby people before and after practices. So, who's the fool there? The fool that doesn't get his car detailed, or the fool with the cloth seats and a bunch of sweaty ogres in the back of it?
There you go. But no, I'm good. I fully recovered from the going away party for day 2 and Denny on this last weekend. I was not on MTG Action 4 News earlier in the week because I'm actually going out of town this weekend. So, just high level, it was great seeing the Joplin crew. It was great seeing a bunch of the guys get together here in KC. I smoked another brisket. It turned out pretty damn good again. And this time I was excited because I actually smoked a 6-pound leg of lamb and made mutton.
The mutton. Did it work out?
Oh, it was good. It was really good. Now, I liked it. I mean, if you like the lamb taste.
Oh, sure. Yeah. For some people, I think they'd call it a little too gamey, but that's lame. So 2 things. One, what was with the Edward 40 hands? And why was it Mr. Magoo, who is not leaving? And Forrest makes sense, but Mr. Magoo having it? Did he just...
Edward 40 hands came from The Godfather.
Yes, I assumed as much.
And Mr. Magoo filled in because Denny left after a couple hours.
Oh, okay, gotcha. Also, I was going to ask... Was there any cans punched off a railing?
Nope.
Was there any cans thrown in the backyard?
Nope.
And then I saw Garrett, and please tell me someone at least put him in his place, or did he go on some sort of rampage?
I think I only played one game with Garrett, and I won pretty quick. I played Joda. I think I did Joda things on turn 4.
Oof.
So I pretty much just made everyone quit.
Good.
I felt good. And if you want to feel good by supporting the cast, you can head over to our Patreon, patreon.com/CMD Tower. We have a lot of different pledge levels. It's always great because we do get voices accredited on Brews and Builds episodes where it's applicable. That's a part of our $1 tier. Deck therapy. And then ideally, once we have enough people and we get to our minimum of 50, we'll actually have a camera, speaker, computer setup that we're going to mail to a patron every month to have someone from the collective on the cast.
Hell yeah.
It's pretty damn cool if I do say so myself.
I completely agree.
Plus, of course, you can get playmat sleeves and all that other stuff, depending on the pledge level. Now, if you're already a Patreon and you want to recruit members to the collective so that way we can actually hit to our 50 goal, we have a referral program. So no matter what tier you refer over to us, we'll do a little something for you. I think for the $1 tier to get access to the Discord and all the other soft things, we're going to assign a gold bordered card of your choice. Of course, you have to send it to us, and I promise I will not tear it up if it's a guy's cradle.
No, you can. I think we can put it in our mouths, though, right? Is that fair? Or like in a beard?
Ooh. I think in a beard. I think in a beard is fine.
Okay, good.
But you will have to provide a strand of hair.
Yes, I was going to say we're going to put it in the thing. Yes.
But if it's the higher tiers, you can get anything from a pack of sleeves to other stuff. And of course, if you guys can't do a monthly contribution, but you still want to pick up some of the CMD Tower branded swag, head over to our store, cmdtower.com/merch, redacted bits, stuff in a basement. And of course, the free way to help us out, just share the content you're already watching and listening, because every little bit of interaction from the collective does help. And of course, we want to give a big shout out to Squee McGee, our audio editor at Dear Squee on Twitter, Dear Squee at CMD Tower for his email. He does have a full studio with a bunch of gear, so if you're looking to do some jamming sessions, want to do it in person, or even send him stuff over the interwebs so that way he could do some audio editing, you should definitely hook him up. And this video is brought to you by @_Tcoats. Tcoats is our awesome video editor and does a lot of editing throughout the content creator world. So definitely, if you have video projects you want him to work on, hit him up. He's a great guy. And there's a redacted bit about music at the end of the episode in the beginning, but it's a redacted bit. And then, of course, stay tuned till you can get details on how you can get that August giveaway. Ooh. So Brews and Builds is our deck tech series. Since we conquered the path of 32 and 12 themes of EDH decks, we've moved on to the classic brew from day one Brews and Builds with a traditional episode.
Yes!
We describe the brewing of decks similar to how beer is brewed. So we broke it down to 4 different categories. The first one's ramp inside of your board state. That's grain.
And grains are the foundation of every beer. They include both base malts and specialty malts, usually in a 60-40 ratio. This helps with the color, the taste, and most importantly, the alcohol content of a beer. Just like this delicious Blue Blaze Alt Amber Ale from Blue Blaze Brewing, where friend of the show, Scooty Shuffles, now works. So the malts pay into this because they've taken two very different classic styles and boiled them together. So it has a deep copper maltiness contrasting with a bright white head and a spicy finish. Decks always need ways to grow, stabilize, and ramp into your bigger threats. Just like a grain profile, they're usually a mix of staples and specialty cards.
And then we have your board interact with all of your opponents. We call that hops.
And hops give the beer its patented bitterness and herbal floral flavors. They grow in a variety of strands and help distinguish subcategories like IPAs. Our hop choices help clear and interact with the board so your deck can ultimately do it at once.
Then we have how does the deck actually close out or win games? And I will say the list for this deck might be a little overzealous. We call that yeast.
I was going to say, I rereading through this and hearing you talk about it. Yeah, I think it reads a little strong, a little more yeasty than it is, and similar scope to a 2%. a 2% stout. Yeast are microorganisms that eat the sugar from the grain and poop out alcohol and CO2. That's alcohol content, the carbonation. Without yeast, you'd be drinking flat sugar water. Without yeast cards, your deck wouldn't meet the goal of actually winning the game.
Is a 2% beer basically just water that someone who drank beer spit into?
So it's actually, okay, we're doing great with time. So if you'll indulge me, there's actually a style of it called table beer that's really popular in Europe. And they put it down because it's clean, but it's like a 1 or 2%. So normally it tastes like water. It tastes like if you took a life straw and then sucked beer out of it and then put it through another life straw, it kind of tastes like that. But I had one recently that was a 2.8% coffee stout. That was delicious. It tasted like a cup of coffee with like a little bit of a kick in it, and it was ice cold. It was chef's kiss.
Yeah, the only reason they do that in Europe is because they don't have clean water,
yes,
and that's
correct.
how they get clean water.
Yes.
Okay.
It's just like the reason why beer was invented in the first place, which is ironic and shows you America. We got it all together, people. There's nothing wrong here.
Then we have shenanigans like this beer story. They could be pet stories or synergies to the story that are just kind of fun. We call that spice.
And not every beer has them. This beer certainly does. But spices is another additive to help separate a normal stock beer from a specialty one. It could be the pepper that turns a stout into jalapeno stout, or the addition of hops that turn IPA into a double IPA. Not every deck has something that makes it pop, but if it does, is where we talk about it.
And then to wrap up the episode, we have a bottle capping. These are going to be BigTucks and Ice cuts and adds to the deck that are under $5, under $50, and a personal recommendation that has no budget. The only restriction is no mana only lands.
Time to get out the wallet.
Without further ado, let's get brewing. Today we're talking about my Estrid the Mask deck, Estrid's mini masks. And of course, the new voices in this episode were brought to you by Day 2. This is a little going away thing. Went ahead and picked some voices we thought you would find funny as a farewell.
Farewell, you scumbag.
So Estrid, interesting commander. We've actually talked about her before, way early in the days with Jason E. Alt. And I don't know. I think my deck's definitely different than his, but BigTuck, why don't you read her CMC and what she does, and then I'll kind of talk about why I built this.
For sure. So Estrid the Mask is a legendary Planeswalker Estrid that comes in with 3 loyalty and costs 1 and Bant. That is green, white, blue. She can be your commander, which I think there's only, 10 Planeswalkers that can do that? No, more than that. It doesn't matter. I can't think of it right now. So it's got 3 abilities. +2 is untap each enchanted permanent you control. -1 is create a white aura enchantment token named Mask, like the Jim Carrey movie, which I should have done even more digging and found more bits for. Oh, we should have done that as one of the voices. Damn it. Attached to another target permanent. Target permanent there being key. This token has enchant permanent and totem armor, which totem armor reads, if I remember correctly, if the enchanted permanent would be destroyed, destroy this instead. And then -7, put the top 7 cards of your library into your graveyard. Return all non-aura enchantment cards from your graveyard to the battlefield. Then do the same for aura cards.
So it's a lot of text.
Yeah, there's a lot going on here.
A lot happening. And if you guys want to know why I built this, it's a very cool story, actually. It's a Planeswalker. It's in Bant, and it does enchantments. And I love Planeswalkers, and I didn't have the other 2.
I was just gonna say, I'm pretty sure this is because this is the only pre-con that came out that you wanted to build because you didn't have the colors.
Correct. I did build Lord Windgrace, though.
Oh, true.
And that deck houses. So yeah, I mean, this is a deck, and I wanted to do an episode on it because I'm really hoping I can get excited about this deck again, because this is definitely one, like Aloro, I don't really enjoy playing it, and it's not because it's not good. A lot of times when I play either of those decks, I usually win or come in second, or at least at some point in the game, I'm doing something so disgusting that everyone teams up on me, which is, how I normally feel day to day in life. So, I mean, I don't have a lot to say about it other than enchantment tribal is very powerful because the amount of removal for enchantments is at a premium, as we constantly talk about. So a lot of times your opponents have to start figuring out, do I really want to use it on this because there's these other gross enchantments and people only have so much. Certain colors don't even offer enchantment removal. So that's where it can kind of become a powerhouse if you wanted to go that way. But yeah, I don't know. Tuck, what do you think of this deck? You've played against it.
Yeah, I have. I think that it's definitely like more of like a mid-range deck, right? And I think that you have some really, I think that the more powerful cards in here are good because you have all the enchantment support, right? And they're just kind of like good cards. Personally, I like enchantment builds. I think they're interesting. I'm not a giant fan of this commander. I know she's like kind of a value train, but I've seen it happen maybe even with you playing her, where you get her up to like 9, 10, 11, and you still don't ultimate her, right? And that's kind of a bummer. So it's weird, right? Like you said, I've never seen this deck not do what it's trying to do, but I have seen times where you've either kind of like whiffed on what you were trying to do, or like it's like this deck is, I think the times I've seen it has been a very consistent train, right? It's kind of like you get your value train, you get your ramp, you kind of have all your pieces there. Like you said, kind of stretching a little bit on a few of the yeast sections, but that's okay. And I think it does its thing. I'm just thinking, I think that there's a few things that we can get to later and kind of talk through that might make it a little bit more aggressive and have a little bit more of like a defined win con.
Yeah, I think that's fair. From a distribution standpoint, it being enchantment tribal, I do want to kind of highlight this. We're running 31 enchantments in the deck.
Oof.
That's
good.
lot.
Yes. I think if we've kind of talked about this, I think if you're doing blah, blah tribal, you need to have, what do we say? Like over 20 is acceptable, but you really want to be in that like 30 range, right?
Mm-hmm. But the interesting thing, Tuck, and I did not notice this. Did you see what I do not run in this deck?
Propaganda
I do
or Ghostly Prison?
Nope. I do not run a single instant in the deck. I did not even know that until now.
Wait, how many sorceries do you have? Like 3?
5. I have 5. And I have one artifact.
One artifact, but I respect you
2
for it.
planeswalkers. Yeah, 31 enchantments, 25 creatures, 36 lands.
And a lot of those creatures are also enchantments in and of themselves, if you look at it.
Yeah, that's fair. But color distribution wise, for us, once again, we've just started kind of doing this in the last couple of years that we do the show. Pretty close. I could use a little bit more green, but it's fine.
And it's also interesting because you do like your mana base, especially for your decks, right? With like the amount of manas that you have, your mana base is like pretty lean in terms of cost and like a bunch of different things. You have a couple in here that are pretty big. But overall, like it's a very kind of like out of the box mana base, right? Which I think has worked for you pretty consistently.
Oh my gosh. Sarah's Sanctum is over $300 now.
Yeah, dog. I could have got one for 100. I can't, but you can't.
I can't believe I lost one.
Wait, was it in this deck or a different one?
No, it was in my God. No. Was it in Gods? Yeah, it was in Gods because all the gods are enchantments.
And it's just gone, right?
Yeah, it's just gone. Just disappeared. That's awesome. Anyways, average CMC for the deck is 373. And the deck is coming in between 750, 800. Oh, no. Here we go. TCG. Screw Card Kingdom.
Yeah.
680 to 720. Which I'd say that's about right with a couple big numbers
you have
in
two of your cards in here are over 400 combined. So that's half the cost in total, which is insane.
I'm wondering what that other one is.
It's also on the... I don't think it's on the reserved list. There's another one that you like because it gets your other favorite card type.
Oh, that one. Yeah, I kind of forgot about her.
It is on the reserved list. So
yeah, and that one actually has a cool story, but we may or may not talk about it.
Oh, right.
All right, guys. Well, why don't we get in here and start brewing this build, and I'll kick it off with my very first grain. So there's a lot of grains in this deck because, as Tuck said, it is very value trainy. And this was a card that came out in Theros Beyond Death that has Constellation and is a champion. We are talking about 3, 2, 1.
Cetacean champion. 2 colors,
2 colorless green. Creature human warrior rare. Ha!
Fine. Luckily, you have the full art, so I can actually read it from a distance. So it has Constellation. Whenever an enchantment enters the battlefield under your control, put a 1/1 counter on Cetacean champion and draw a card. Ooh, it's good. And it's really good. It's $3 right now, which is shocking because I thought after rotation it would have gone down a little bit, but what do you know?
Yeah, I mean, it just does so much. The thing that I really like about it is we talked about this on Tomer's episode. Constellation is really, really cool because a lot of times you'll make stuff enchantment wise and you're not casting it. It's, return it from the graveyard to the battlefield. Yes. You're making the masks with your commander. And so if it's a cast, you're not going to get it. This guy, you're always drawing a card and it's getting it a little bit bigger, which if you think about it, you have this out turn 3, turn 4, play Estrid, -1 her, put the mask on Cetacean champion, you draw a card, and it becomes a 3/3. That's awesome.
Yeah, it's bonkers. And I think I completely agree with that. It's a house. It's a really good card. So I want to talk about this BS that Wizards does where it says Constellation, then it says what Constellation does, right? So I hate because they've printed cards that do this exact same thing that don't say Constellation on it. It's like, just find your way. Like, you have these keywords, just use them for God's sakes. But yeah, I think any of these things, and if you're running enchantments, you want every single one of these. And I think this is one of the better ones because it's only 3 and it turns into a really good defender and maybe so that you can get some damage in with too.
Yeah, I totally agree. All right, Tuck, why don't you educate us? What is your second grain?
So I always like to go and look at like the last updated, and I try to sneak in before anything else happens when we first talk about these decks, because I like to see when the last time you updated it is. Now it's been a day because you added the filters or whatever, which is totally fine. But this is a card that came out recently, and I think it's a really interesting inclusion, and I really, really like it because you have 30 options to take a hit here. So I'm talking about a legendary creature dragon, which could in a pinch be your backup commander, Amareth the Lustrous. So 3 colorless and Bant, again, that's green, white, blue. For a 6/6 flyer, not bad. Whenever another permanent enters a battlefield under your control, look at the top card of your library. If this shares a card type with that permanent, you may reveal that card and put it into your hand. And we are going to our first voice of the day. No. Okay, we're good. All right. So this is Malimo as Gandalf as white, as the Gandalf the White in the forest. So come closer. Oh God, that's terrible. I gotta think this through. It's like Ian McKellen, so he's like very British. Come. Okay, British. Like Like,
no, that's Australian.
I know. Just hold on. Just give me a second. I wasn't prepared for this. All right. So think. Come closer, dear, and let me see that bauble, hobbits. I've got a match for it somewhere. ... I haven't seen The Lord of the Rings in like 10 years, so leave me alone. Okay, so I think this is actually a very spirited, I wish it was a spirit dragon pick, because I think this also can be a great value engine. I think it's something that would be good to slap stuff onto, because you do have a lot of auras in here and then get in the red zone with. But I think the real reason why I like this is because unlike the other legendary dragons of this varietal, it doesn't have to connect. It doesn't have to do anything for it to be valuable, right? And on top of that, it's a permanent entering the battlefield, right? So the mass that you're creating, those small little 1-drop artifacts or anything that you're going to, or sorry, enchantments, anything that you're going to get out of your hand onto the battlefield or created out of the onto the battlefield will let you take a look and probably 9 times out of 10 draw you a card, right? I wish it would let you like filter it or do something with the card on top, but I think the odds are really good when you have over 30% of your deck will fit this. You're going to be able to hit on this pretty much every time you hit it, hopefully, right? And obviously there's always the edge cases, and the next time you do this, you're never ever going to be able to hit one before. But I think it's a really spirited choice. It's a card that doesn't get played very often, and I really like it in the deck.
Yeah, I'm iffy on it. I'm really? Gonna be honest.
You think it's too? Do you think it's too like slimy for the value, or what?
So it's been in the deck for 8 months. I know you were asking about that earlier. So I just actually, this deck wasn't even in my tapped out. I've owned the deck for years and I've never put it in. That's how little I think of this deck. I don't know. So I have it in here as a grain. I think if I played the deck enough and got to see it a few times, I think it actually might shift to a spice. And I think the card is always a spice. Unless you're doing some sort of permanent tribal to where everything has creature in its creature type or everything has artifact in its type, where you can kind of cheat stuff. Because it's just, unless you're running top deck manipulation, it's just too much of a gamble. And so, just like the Primordials, I look at this kind of as a spice, but to Tuck's point, basically 50% of the card types that I have in the deck make up, that would probably be 95% of the deck. So it's like I basically have a 33% chance to hit every time I do one. So it's nice, but I like the fact that I get it to hand, so that's why I kind of leave it in the grain for now. But I would love to hear, if anyone in the community has built an Amareth Illustrious deck where it is some sort of permanent tribal to where you try to make everything have something as a subtype, the way you could always try to hit on it.
Yeah, exactly. But again, like, it's a very spirited choice, so I respect you for putting it in and leaving it in.
All right, I'm talking about a very boring card, but I actually really like this card, and I think it's a card that could get played a lot more. It's an aura, it's an enchantment, it's common, it's unbridled growth.
Ooh, interesting.
Really like this. 1 green, enchantment aura common, it's 9 cents, and it states enchant land. Enchanted land has tap, add 1 mana of any color to your mana pool. And then you could sack it to draw a card. And it's not a tap sack. It's just a straight sacrifice the enchantment, draw a card. And there is some text that we picked
first
out.
one.
Yep. And who am I sounding like?
This is an old-timey gangster like our boy James Cagney.
If the continent has abandoned the restraint seas, so too shall the wilds. Siraj, Keeper of the Cow.
Very good. Very good.
Yeah, this is actually a card I could see it getting run a lot more in 3, 4, and 5 color decks because it's basically replacing itself and it's going to help color fix you potentially. And I think this is a great enchantment if you're someone who likes to run a lot of utility lands that do a lot of strip mine, I have to sacrifice it, or, drawing a blank.
Help me out here.
Good
what
Lord.
are we doing here?
I was trying to think of other lands that blow up shit. So any of those, Unbridled Growth is also really good on, because a lot of times the drawback is, I'd love to put a Reliquary Tower in my deck or a Strip Mine in my deck because it has utility, but I don't get colors. So do I want that on my 4-color deck or 5-color deck? Probably not. But Unbridled Growth, if you run that in there and have a way to kind of use enchantments, don't do it as a one-off, but I definitely think it can be played a lot more.
Yeah, and there's a lot of ways around this. There's a lot of utility for this card. There's a lot of decks that I think this was a card that was played in Standard in some sort of rigmarole. I do like it for the color fixing, and I do think it's a great budget card. However, we might be talking about this a little bit later. But I do think this is a good thing to sacrifice to save your card, right? It gives you that kind of utility on the ground. And for 9 cents, it's a great, great budget option for fixing your mana.
And my commander untaps it.
There you go. Absolutely.
All right, Tuck, give us your last card.
So I called it. I'm calling my shot right now. This is the only card in here that I think has Ascend. And I just think it's a cool card because you will be flooding the board with permanents. I'm just wondering if you, I just will think that you probably will think it's too slow. I am talking about time to awaken the gallows. We're talking about Kumena's Awakening. So 2 colorless, 2 blue for an enchantment, and it has Ascend, which is if you control 10 or more permanents, you get the City's Blessing for the rest of the game. At the beginning of your upkeep, each player draws a card. If you have the City's Blessing, instead, only you draw a card. So for me, I like this because it's not a threat. It's kind of like Phyrexian Arena in the sense that you will start to get the value off it. Why I like it in this is that it's just another enchantment that will go into feeding your other enchantment things that care about it, whether it's entering the battlefield, whether it's pumping things up because they care about what enchantments you have to go with. That's why I like it a lot. I also know that you hate one-off card draw spells. So at least on this one, it's going to contribute to your end growth. I mean, if you have a way to tap it, that would be cool if you could untap it with your commander. But I think it's kind of like a fun card. It's an interesting card. I'm sure you just had one of these lying around and ran into it. But Kumena's Awakening, another spirited choice for the deck.
Yeah, it's fine. I mean, I'd rather have Rhystic Study.
Sure.
But I don't play this deck, so I'm not going to put the money
so
into
I'm not going to shell out $40, whatever it is for whatever insanity it is for Rhystic Study.
The only reason it's even still in the deck is because by the time I play this, I'll have more than 10 permanents, so I'll have the City's Blessing. If it was something where I was struggling with permanents or doing some sort of aristocrats, I'm sacking stuff, I would not run this card in a million miles near that. But because, once again, by turn 4, I could probably I'll have the 4 lands of Kumena's Awakening. I very well could have 4 to 5 enchantments.
Yeah.
It's worth having in there.
Your commander, 4 lands, your commander, and the mask off of that, you're almost half the way there with just things that you have on the board.
Yep. All right. Well, my last one, this is a card that I actually got to do really something cool at one of the level 1 takeovers that we used to do. We're talking about Cold-Eyed Selkie.
Ooh. I like
One colorless Simic, so you'd either pay a hybrid of blue and green, any combo. Creature, Merfolk, Rogue, rare. It's a 1/1. Comes in for around 20 cents, which is kind of shocking. I would think it would be more. It has Island Walk, so it can't be blocked if the defending player controls an island. Tuck's dancing. I don't know why. I assume it's because I got the elephant from Jungle Book.
Whenever the elephant.
Whenever Cold-Eyed Selkie deals combat damage to a player, you may draw that many cards. She follows the old obituaries, but when Merosh still shaped the tides. So I was actually able to slap this Selkie with so many enchantments that I actually one-shotted someone and drew like 30 cards. It was the best feeling in the world. If you're not running Cold-Eyed Selkie and you have a Simic deck, it's worth putting in, even if you're not doing any type of Voltron or Merfolk or Rogue or anything. This card is awesome.
Well, and it's like Island Walk is such a great ability because there's always going to be a target, right? People are always going to be, there's going to be someone at the table that's running blue unless you like completely get unlucky, right? So a 1/1, even if it's a 1/1, that's not even enough to like get angry, right? And as I said, I think one thing that I am continuing to look through when I see this is you do have tons of auras, right? And you have some really good stuff to slap them onto. But like you said, I think you want to make sure that you get it onto things that are going to give you a lot of value. And Cold-Eyed Selkie in there is definitely going to get you rolling. I also agree. I think this card is bonkers. Really good in anything that cares about low to the ground creatures. Probably would not be a terrible pick for the Lannis to get that down. So maybe I'll go through the old binder and see if I got one lying around.
Well, I'm going to go through and say that that's wrapped up the grain section. Now we're heading over to the hot profile. And BigTuck, I want you to kick us off. I don't know why I went country, but we're just going to go with it.
All right. So there is a version of this card that has been completely trounced and replaced with an artifact. And I know this because I've been looking at this card for a very long time for a deck I'm never going to end up building. And it's going to bind you with a bond to your morality. We're talking bonds of morality.
Jesus.
Colorless and a green. When Bonds of Morality enters the battlefield, draw a card. And then 1 green, creatures your opponents control lose hexproof and indestructible until end of turn. And this is being read by Nicolas, my second British guy of the day. Jace discovered the ley line patterns needed to anchor Olimog and Kozilek to reality. But it was Nissa who could trace it on her world.
Well, that's lame. That's starting off kind of cool. And then trace it on her world? Boo.
Yeah, I don't like that at all. It's 25 cents. So this is normally... So the thing I was going to allude to is I think Shadow Spear is just like a better version in this in most decks, but in here it's not. Because even if you draw this late game, it replaces itself, and you're going to have your Setestian champions, your other whenever an enchantment enters the battlefield under your control, do this, that, or the other thing. So at least you're getting the value out of that. And also you do have some auras that you do not want on your creatures. And I think that's one of the prime ways that you're going to use removal in this deck is enchanting other people's creatures. So the fact that you can strip them of hexproof, most importantly, the indestructible thing doesn't do as much in this deck. But again, it's kind of a rattlesnake thing where if they swing in, they think they have a good block and you can do some sort of shenanigans there. That I think is going to do it. And it's only a 2-drop. So I'm a big fan of this in the deck. Let's get you some card draw.
Yeah, actually, I think there's a lot more to the indestructible part than maybe you're giving credit to. Because I do run another enchantment in the hop section that when stuff happens to my stuff, I get to destroy my opponents.
Oh,
so it's like,
sure.
Green open. You sure you want to do that? You sure you want to piss me off? And we kind of talked about it. I don't run a lot of instant, so I don't have a lot of like exile that usually white would have. I don't have a lot of even destroy effects. I have very limited removal. And so actually I really like Bonds of Morality mortality just because of the fact that when I do need to board wipe, this thing can assure it's actually going to go through, opposed to like, crap, I only have like 3 and I have the one I need in hand, but I have no way to deal with their indestructible stuff. I guess I'm just screwed. All right. Well, let's go to my first one. This is a card that Tuck alluded to. I have a very cool story about it, and it's also a very sad story at the same time. But we are talking about the good old grandma that will grab anything you need from your library, Academy Rector. 3 colorless... 3 colorless white, creature cleric. It's a rare. It's a 1/2 for $130. When Academy Rector is put into a graveyard from play, you may remove Academy Rector from the game. If you do, search your library for an enchantment card, put that card into play, then shuffle your library. So 2 things. One, we'll do the story first, and then we'll do why it's actually in the deck. I was really wanting to get this card for this deck multiple years ago. But at the time, it was like $100 or $120. And I was like, no way in hell I'm paying that for this card. That's absolutely insane. So went to actually, this is when we went to Japan. So I was in Tokyo. I was in Akihabara. Found a random card shop. They had a English one. I'd say it was moderately played for like 60 US or 50 US.
Oh.
And I was like, holy hell. Oh, I'm buying it. Oh, gonna do it. So I went ahead and bought it. And then I believe, Tuck, that was the year that we started recording Brews and Builds. We had Jason Alt on, and he's a little bit of a finance guy. And he was like, oh yeah, like a bunch of people like had bought them all up for some reason, so made the price spike. But then no one paid that price, so then the price plummeted. And and I was like, what? And I think we pulled it up, and it was going for like $35. And I was son of a bitch. But hey, look at that. The pandemic made me my money back. So
exactly. There you go.
That's the funny story. So the real reason initially I put it in here is in my mind, it was, Academy Rector. I'm just going to keep swinging until someone kills it. And then I get a yeast card that we may talk about later. I'm not going to talk about it. Are you?
Yeah, me neither.
Okay. Omniscience. You go get Omniscience.
This card says when this card is put into a graveyard for play, you go get Omniscience and put it on the battlefield.
Yeah. So you would think it's a yeast, but actually the few times that I did play the deck and I got to do that, I would empty out my hand and have nothing to do because I didn't have the right card draw stuff on the board. So I've actually adjusted Academy Rector from a win now yeast card to a hops card because it's not always in your best interest to go get Omniscience, because what if you only have like 2 lands and 1 enchantment in hand? Are you praying that you could chain that into like playing a bunch of stuff from your deck? I'm not going to take that gamble. But now it's, okay, Academy Rector dies. What's really screwing me on the board? Let's go grab that and bring it out.
Right, go grab Kumana's Awakening. I mean, that seems like an immediate snap grab, right?
Shut the hell up. All right, well, Tuck, what is your second hop?
So this is a fair version of a card that you play in other decks, specifically in your Azorius one, because it pains people for trying to play too fast or playing too much green.
Ooh, this is a great card.
It's confounding as to why I haven't seen this card before. Conundrum. Oh, yeah! We got it. The Deuce. Confounding Conundrum. Black enchantment for 20 cents.
When an ETBs, draw a card, and whenever a land enters the battlefield under an opponent's control, if that player had another land enter the battlefield under the control this turn, they have to return a land they control to its owner's hand. So now, technically, they can play the land and tap it with the ability on the stack, so they can still get the mana. But yeah, no more. I'm going to throw out 6 lands in a turn. Just go to hell, green. Go to hell, even though I am green, but,
But there's so many decks now, and we talked about this last week on Lonus, where, like, the Simic Commander is just a lands value train, right? That's all it does. Mm-hmm. So I think being able to get this out on turn 2, and you don't really have that much ramp, even though it doesn't affect you. The ramp that you have in this deck is very much like enchantment based and that sort of thing. But the fact that, so that's when I first read it, it's like, but the fact that it even specifies opponents, like this just really, really penalizes people who are trying to build their Simic value trains, and it draws you a card, and it's going to funnel in all your other stuff that you have going on that's going to give your Setestian champion, make it bigger, like draw you even more cards. I'm a big fan of this one. I think it's a very fair card for the effect that it's doing.
Yeah, I love literally everything about it. I think it's properly costed. I love that it's only 20 cents. Mm-hmm. This seems like something that could become a mono blue standard, similar to how Rest in Peace is somewhat of a mono white standard. If you run blue in your deck, it's like, well, does my group ramp quite a bit? I mean, it's basically a 1 mana hose your opponents for ramp, and you paid 1 mana to draw a card. That's not a terrible investment. So yeah, I like it a lot. Definitely a cool card. Well, my last one is a card named after the commander herself, and we can blink all day long. So we're talking Estrid's Invocation.
Oh, it's so good.
Hilarious. This thing is now over $7.
Oh my god. Come on.
2 colorless blue enchantment. It's a rare because it's phenomenal. It's amazing.
It's really good. Yeah, it's really strong.
You may have it ETB as a copy of any enchantment you control, except it gains At the beginning of your upkeep, you may exile this enchantment. If you do, return it to the battlefield under its owner's control. Give me my flavor text.
Yes, we got you a good one. Eiley, the Kama Cleric, who's right here from Tennessee as a Southern Belle.
Enchanters add layers upon layers of our complexity to the world around them. So the thing I love about this card is it basically says 3 mana, have it enter the battlefield as the strongest enchantment you have, and then every upkeep you get to do it again, and do it again, and do it again. And then the nice thing, hey, bouncing, you're going to blink all my permanents. It's going to come back in as a copy and, do something else. So this thing's great. I wish it wasn't $7 because this is a card I would like to play more frequently. But in this deck, it is a house.
Well, and I think it's big too, where I think one of the reasons why it is so good, like you said, is that the worst version of this card would just say at the beginning of your upkeep, it becomes a copy of another enchantment you control. But the fact that it flickers itself and then fires everything else that's going to come after that is really, really strong. I feel like copy effects are the reason why this is expensive, right? It can be backbreaking, but it also could just be a Bonds of Mortality, and then you draw a card. You know what I mean? So I do like the fact that it's got that kind of like variance to it. But yeah, insanely strong. Should probably see a lot more play than it does, but I guess you kind of have to at least have some aspect of enchantment theme going.
Yeah, totally see it. All right, Tuck, give me your last one. Hit me with your best shot.
So I like this one. Kind of kept me up for a minute in terms of thinking through it, and I'm pretty sure I know why it's in here, but I'm not 100% sure. I feel like I might be missing something because you don't run infect. So I think solemnity is in response to maybe some decks that can beat this ? So 2 colorless and a white for an enchantment. Players can't get counters. And then counters can't be put on artifacts, creatures, enchantments, or lands. So we do also have some flavor text here being read by Vornclix, who's a coffee shop barista short on time. The arrival of the Gal Fabio marked as a betrayal of both gods and mortals. Okay, next customer. Because they misspell the names, right?
Yeah. I get it.
Okay, good. So I think why this card is in here is because the only counters you really care about, except for one card, are all planeswalkers. So this kind of screws over anyone that's playing counters. And if someone's playing Triumph of the Hordes or some sort of infect rigmaroles, this is kind of a response to that. So I think that's why it's in here. Am I completely missing something?
Yeah, you're completely missing something. So it's not in here to challenge infect. It's not in here to kind of hose my opponents.
Challenge
it's in
one-on.
Yeah, no, it's in here because I don't have a lot of removal. And so one of the things that is rampant, at least in our play group, is things getting big with +1/+1 counters. And so this is 100% in here because every single game I sit down at, someone is distributing counters
+1/+1, right? Yeah.
Somehow. And we're even starting to see an uptick of just utility counters. We have people in our playgroup that literally build entire decks around vigilance counters and stuff. The Go did that.
Sure, right.
There's always someone that's going to get hosed with solemnity. And so that's why it's in here, and it's an enchantment. So
sure, yeah. And you get to draw a card, and again, shuts down Triumph of the Hordes and that sort of stuff. So yeah, it's a little sweaty because it could potentially be a dead card, but I like the spirit of it behind it, of choosing it.
Technically, everything's a dead card unless there's something to play it on.
I like the battlefield, like all your other enchantments.
All right, guys. Well, that's going to wrap up the hops. Now we're going to go over to the 19 ways this deck can apparently win, which I believe is a lie, in the yeast section.
It's a flat lie.
Flat lie. So I'm going to start off with the very first one on the list. It's a card that no matter when you see it played, your opponents will have their buttholes pucker.
Yes.
3, 2.
I'm sorry, I was wrong. This is all you.
You tool. Archetype of imagination. 4 colorless, blue, enchantment creature, human wizard. It's a 3/2 for less than $1. It states, creatures you control have flying. Creatures your opponents control lose flying and can't have or gain flying. And this is another new voice to the list. Prokopos.
Yes.
Astronomer of Meletus.
One of your all-time favorites, our old pal Jeff Goldblum, has entered the studio.
It is not the embodiment of... that's more Captain Kirk.
I was going to say, like a little canoe in there.
Is it not the embodiment of... I can't do it, aspirations. I fail.
Yeah, it's like a little bit of Joker 1989, but it's close. You had this. Like when we saw Deadpool and Jeff Goldblum was on the Alamo Draft House, you had a pretty good likeness of him.
Yeah, I don't know. It's just I can't get it right now. But Archetype of Imagination, guys.
Yeah, it's bonkers.
If you're not running it, you should run it probably in any deck that runs blue and is playing in the red zone, because to just, hey, you have no flying, all my crap has flying, and you can't have or gain flying, that is bananas.
Yeah, it's so good. Yeah, it's really good. And normally it doesn't matter for this, even though it's a human wizard, Harry, so I guess you could run it in a deck like that. It's like such the icing on the top that this is also an enchantment creature, right? I think that this deck, most of the times that you've played it, when you have won, it's been through the red zone, correct?
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. So I think the fact this is pretty backbreaking, and especially if you have things that reduce the cost of enchantments, normally that's the reason where it's like, that's a lot of mana. But getting this down for 5, getting this down for 4 is pretty incredible, and also going into all your other enchantment strategies.
And it being the enchantment with Estrid's Plus, if I want to swing with it, I can, and I can have it untapped for a blocker. So
absolutely.
Great stuff. All right, Tuck, give us your first yeast.
So this is one that this is the one I thought was first. It's actually the second, which I think does a lot more than it seems in this deck especially. So we are talking about our old pal, Aura Neurlian. Totally gnarly, man. Wow. So 2 colorless and a green for a 2/2 creature beast. That's an uncommon you can get for a quarter. Creatures with power less than Aura Gnarlids can't block it. And then it gets +1/+1 for each aura on the battlefield. And now we have our old pal, Captain Lannery Storm, coming in to yell at you right after pulling that slot wheel. Kill a Gnarlid with your first blow, honey. I'll cheerfully show you how it's done, sweetheart. I'll take another Mai Tai. Ka-churk.
I swear to Christ, if I ever go to Vegas and some old woman talks to me in that voice, I'm going to shit myself.
I'm going to Vegas at the end of the month, so I'm hoping that I'll be able to have a recording to bring to next time. But yes, I like this card. I think it's kind of meat and potatoes in the sense of it. But with all the enchantments on it, with all the auras, you're always going to need targets, right? And I think that is something that these decks kind of forget about is like, sure, I have 1 or 2 big beaters, but just something like this that is going to get huge, unblockable, and then becomes a great target for when maybe you get a board wipe, you play this, then at that time, you have the ability to do it with the -7 on Estrid, come back, and now you have some 24/24 monstrosity that can't be blocked by anything. I think it's going to start beating. Again, it's not the best target in the deck, but I think it's kind of one of the underrated ones, and it seems to me like you get a lot of bang for buck just for 3 mana.
Yeah, and I love the all auras on the battlefield. So if you just so happen to play the opponent that's also doing auras, good for you. And I would rather, and Tuck, I'm wondering if you feel the same way. I would rather my creatures not to be able to be blocked by creatures power less than it than powers greater than it. Would you agree with that?
Yes. Yeah. Yes, 100%.
Especially with stuff like this, to where it's probably going to be a 999.
9999. Absolutely. I know we've kind of this voice bit is taking all of my brain power away from all the other bits that I have saved somewhere else.
Well, we'll move on to my next one. And this is probably one of my favorite auras in all of Magic. The Tribal Enchantment.
Oh.
And this is one that usually if people are not familiar with the card, they just immediately panic. And then they're like, wait, what does it do? And then they read it, and then they panic even more.
And then they panic again.
Eldrazi Conscription.
Oh, it's so big.
8 colorless, Tribal Enchantment, Eldrazi Aura. It's a rare. The copy that I have is from Ultimate Masters. It comes in between $11 and $12. Enchant creature. Enchanted creature gets +10/+10 and has trample and Annihilator 2. So when it attacks, defending player sacks 2 permanents. And I do have some Eldrazi conscripture to read.
Oh, nice. It's an easy one. The voice of the Chicago Cubs for many years, our old pal Harry Carey.
The barest taste of Eldrazi power shatters both realms and identities. Blue cheese. Even though I think your Jerry, your Walken, and your Harry are all kind of on the same level, but the different levels of enthusiasm you bring to each of them, I think is what really differentiates them. And it's great. They're like my favorite things for you to read off. God. Besides that stupid elephant. Oh my God, that stupid elephant. So I don't think I need to explain why this is an East card. You put it on a creature, and if it doesn't get dealt with, you're probably winning in a handful of turns, or at least killing one player. Now, will I say this card's $11 to $12 good? Probably not. I'm sure there's a copy you could probably find for $5 or $6, getting non-foil and stuff like that. Yeah. I think it's probably a $4 card. And you need to run it in a deck where you do ramp. And Tuck pointed out, I don't run a traditional ramp package. It's all enchantments. But the thing is that at any point, if I have 7 lands down, 4 of them are probably enchanted. So Estrid's ability, most of the time, I can get this spell out on like turn 5 or 6. Which if I can get that thing out earlier before people have really built up their defenses, done a bunch of card draw to find counter spells, I'm just going to put myself light years ahead.
Yeah, it's really bonkers. I think that the only thing I wish, and it would put the card over the top, right? But I wish it also had the monster mash ability that the other Eldrazi's have to like shuffle it back into your library. I know it's asking entirely too much, but I thought that would kind of be cool.
Here's what they could have done, though. They could have made it cost 9 mana or 10 mana, similar to like Ulamog or Kozilek.
Oh, sure, yeah.
And then do the monster mash. That would have been cool.
That would be awesome. But yeah, it's so good. I mean, Annihilator 2 can just be completely backbreaking. This is definitely one of the ways that you can win out the deck pretty quick. And definitely probably the strongest aura that you have in the deck, too. And it's a tribal enchantment to boot. So all your Eldrazi tutors that you're running here, you can just go snatch it right up.
The boot! All right, Tuck, give us your next yeast.
So this is another one that I think facilitates this build that we're going for in a big way. It's also one of your higher end cards that is also insanely strong. It's a Colossi, and I already know that you didn't choose this because you didn't put it on the voice list. Nylea's Colossus. Holy cow. So 7 mana, it's 6 and a colorless for 6/6 enchantment creature giant. It's rare for about $5 and I'm sorry.
Oh, wow.
Wait, yeah, $5. Maybe you can get it cheaper somewhere else. It also has Constellation. So whenever it or another enchantment enters a battlefield under your control, double target creature's power and toughness until end of turn. And we have another brand new voice, the classic witch Nylea, which makes no sense for a hunter, but that's what we got. Those who seek my toil and troubles and predictions shall receive it. Little bit of Yoda in there, but what are you gonna do? So it's really good. I think it's worth every penny that you'd pay for it in a deck like this. This turns all of your late draw things, like again, your wild growths of the world, your overgrowths, the unbridled growth, pretty much anything that has a growth in it. That's gonna get you a huge beater. You have other ways to give certain things evasion. Your archetype of imagination. Like, good God, like imagine you have an Eldrazi's Conscription on one, another thing on another. You got your Aura Gnarled out, then you play 3 of those things. You're just going to end up winning late game. Insanely strong, insanely good in this deck. Probably the best finisher in the deck from a wider perspective, in my opinion. Just a completely bonkers one as an enchantments build.
Yeah, I actually won a game about 3 months ago with Nylea's Colossus. I think that turn I had 10 or 12 enchantments enter the battlefield.
Ugh.
Yeah.
Especially if you like -7, right? It comes out, everything else comes out. Oh, yeah. Is that how you did it?
Yeah.
Nice. Love it. It's so strong.
All right. Well, my last one is one where you just cannot question authority. Talking unquestioned authority. 2 colorless white enchantment aura. It's an uncommon for 14 cents. Enchant creature. When it ETBs, draw a card, replacing itself. But here's where it's bananas. And initially, I think I would have put this into Spice, but because I've built Commander Esha and seen how powerful this is, 100% this is a Yeast. Enchanted creature has protection from creatures.
God, so good.
It's so good.
It's so good.
But I do have some text I have to read.
We have our old pal, hashtag Dovin Sucks, who's fittingly the mumble coach from the Waterboy, which you've gotten several times.
You're getting claimed of no history. So this is the thing, guys. I feel like as Magic players, we're always trying to create extra value with the cards that we put in our decks. We're not just putting a 2/4 flavorless creature in the deck. We're doing a 2/4 Death Touch, 2/4 ETB, destroy target creature, or tap target creature. We're trying to max the value of everything we put in here, which a lot of times does, unless you're doing a Spellslinger deck, reduces your instant count, reduces your sorcery count, because it starts to kind of fill those gaps. And then your instants and sorceries are very like critical, laser focused ideas of why you need it. And so on Questioned Authority, you play it at the right point in the game. That creature is probably going to last multiple combat phases and no one will be able to do anything about it. Phenomenal.
It's bonkers. For some reason, I always read this card as costing 4 instead of 3. So I'm always like, is it that good? And then I reread it. It's like, no, it's insane. Can't be pinged, can't be blocked. Like you said, I think that's such a great point of like every creature has something to do. And even if you look in your deck, a lot of your creatures have ETBs that target creatures or target permanents. It's just really good. And it's like kind of a funny thing where it's like, in a deck where so much of your creatures do stuff, it's kind of funny that you're like, oh, now your creatures can't do anything to this one, and I'm going to come in and bash you right in the skull.
And the other thing I didn't even point out is the fact that it enchants the creature. This kind of gives you that pseudo-vigilance type of attack where I can swing in and still have a blocker. Same thing with this, because Estrid's ability, you're always doing second main phase, unless you're trying to like chain together a bunch of enchant lands to cast, an Eldrazi Inscription or something. So, you swing in, they can't block, you probably smack them for 8. And then, I'm going to untap it. Now I got an 8 blocker that doesn't matter if you swing at me with a 50-50, nothing's going to happen. So it's so bonkers. And it's like 50 cents or something like that. 14.
Totally worth the pickup in any of these decks. It's bonkers.
All right, Tuck, bring us home in the yeast. And what's your yeast?
So I know why this is in here. I get it. I think it's cute. And I think it's a funny.
Is it my Zelda commander?
Yes, exactly. It's like kind of a deck of girlfriend's pass pick, which I'm always a sucker for, and it sort of works. But
totally works.
Rafik of the Many is a card. So a colorless and another Bant. That's your green, white, and blue for a 3/3 legendary creature, human knight. It's a mythic, around $10 to $12 depending on what varietal you have,
or 12 to 90.
Yeah, thanks, Card Kingdom. You really got your edges ironed out there. So it's got Exalted. So whenever a creature you control attacks alone, that creature gets +1/+1 until end of turn. And then whenever a creature you control attacks alone, it gains double strike until end of turn. So normally this is it's funny that normally this card's only good by itself. But in this deck, this card kind of is better not attacking because you can enchant something else that has some sort of protection. You can play this after you've already done your enchantment rigmaroles, and that thing gets that much bigger. That's why I like it. And again, it's just funny that like I know you like this card. I know you have a soft spot in your heart for old Rafik, and it's cute. I like the inclusion of it in here quite a bit. So we have our old pal the Kundros coming in here as well. Like many sigils, but one purpose. Smelly Cat.
So I think Tuck completely downplays this. I think in a deck where you're only going to win off the red zone, I don't think this deck has a single other way to win other than just combat. So you're going to have to win off of the red zone, and the deck has tons of auras. Well, what do you need to put on auras? Creatures. Not every creature can be a noble hierarch and just be a value card or
Agreed.
a Kestia the Cultivator. It's just... You need stuff to really be able to put it onto, and that's why the Aura Narlids of the world and Rafiks of the Minis are in here because, or even Sarah Ascendant. Sarah Ascendant's in here because it's great to slap a bunch of crap on that.
Sarah Ascendant is like the best, one of the best cards in the deck.
Well, I mean, I think we can say that about every deck Sarah Ascendant's in.
Very, very true. But I think that both times I've seen you played this, you had Sarah Ascendant out on turn 1 or 2. It was just some weird freak of shuffling.
What can I say? It's my army of the damned.
Yeah, for sure.
All right, guys. So, well, that's going to wrap up the yeast package. And now we're going to head over to the spice and BigTuck. Not a lot of spice.
Not a lot of spice here. This is, I think, this completely fits the definition of the spice in the sense of what you just talked about. Because it's a mana rock for a long time that you have it, and then it turns into some sort of beast. This is a spice card through and through, and I love it. So I believe it's pronounced Arithmethes, comma, Slumbering Isle. So 2 colorless and Simic, that's green and a blue for a 12/12 legendary creature Kraken. That's around $3 to $6, I suppose. So it enters the battlefield with tapped with 5 slumber counters on it. As long as it has a slumber counter on it, it's a land, not a creature. Whenever you cast a spell, you may remove a slumber counter from Arithmethes, and then you can tap it and add blue and green. So this is like a total rattlesnake card that you're building up to. And I love how this like really puts the onus into somebody else's hands. So you can play it first. The first turn you run it out. And normally when I've seen this card play, you pay your 4 and then you're done there. It's a land, right? So then you untap it. And then you also go into your rigmaroles of casting your spells, casting your low cost things, and it slowly ticks down, right? And then people start to panic. They're like, what are we going to do with this thing? It's 12/12. And then the second that you cast your unbridled growth to get it off to 12, I guarantee you're going to have something to cast on it. Maybe you already have Rafik of Many on the battlefield. And this thing is just going to start going in and beating face. And correct me if I'm wrong, this does have a weird combo with solemnity because it just comes down and then it's just a 12/12 for 4, right?
Yep.
Tapped, but still. So this to me is like a great example of a spice card for this deck. It's not an enchantment. It's sometimes a creature, but there's just so much that's going into it. I just think it's really fun. And in worst case, you'll be able to tap it for some mana.
Yeah, I'm going to be cutting it. It's just way too slow, and 4 mana for basically, let's just call it, I'll get 6 mana out of it, and then most likely someone's going to remove it. I don't know. But I will say this, I've always been intrigued by Arithmethes. I'd love to see an actual commander deck built out of it. I think that would be kind of cool. Yeah. And I think it is very spicy. And I think if this was a deck, I know there's a lot of thinking happening. If this was a deck to where I could potentially do a quote unquote storm, be able to play like 4 spells in a turn, brew a bunch of the counters, and I could get to it a little quicker, then I'm all for that. But something that I may only be playing 1 or 2 per turn, and it's going to take me maybe 3 rotations, I don't know. It's just, it's a little flavor town. It's a little greasy. It's definitely pretty slimy. So I mean, it makes sense to me why you'd cut it. I just like that. I just want to talk about it. I want to talk about it. The one I'm going to talk about is one, and I'm surprised you didn't call me out on this because it doesn't seem like it should be a spice, but it absolutely is. We're talking about Creeping Renaissance. 3 colorless green sorcery. It's a rare. It's 64 cents. It does have flashback for 5 colorless and green, so you can play it from your graveyard for its flashback, then exile it. So what it does is choose a permanent type, return all cards of the chosen type from your graveyard to your hand. This to me is a spice card because I don't know if I want all that stuff from my graveyard to my hand.
Yeah.
And maybe it's one that I'm not even doing enchantments. Maybe I'm doing lands because I'm land screwed. I don't know. It's right. This thing has such a high ceiling, but its floor is literal trash.
Yeah, it's like, I completely agree. And again, if you're doing the things right, there's been a lot. I was really keen on this card when I first started seeing it.
We all were.
Yeah. And I think it's just like, there's been a lot of times where I've just played it and chosen, I don't know, a fetch land just to get it into my graveyard and out of my hand, right? So paying 5 for something that sucks isn't a great rate. And you just, it's like, it's very reactionary, right? So that's why I agree. It's definitely a spice. And it's kind of a pick where there are a bunch of things where you can like, grab artifacts or enchantments or whatever that are more specific. It does give you that kind of late game flexibility, but yeah, it's an interesting one for sure. And I've been burned by it in the past. So yeah, definitely keeps in the spice train for it.
I'm actually kind of surprised you didn't talk about the last spice card. I thought that would be some casual catnip for you.
It's I gotta talk about my boy. I gotta talk about my boy.
All right, guys. Well, that's gonna wrap up the spice package, and now we're gonna head over to the bottle capping. And as a reminder, there's gonna be big tucks and ice cuts and adds to the deck that are gonna be under $5, under $50, and a no budget recommendation. We just can't talk about mana only lands.
So before I'm gonna keep going.
Okay.
Before we get into the cuts, my one recommendation that I would want you to think about is swapping your commander. So I actually think that Tuvasa the Sunlit is a better commander for this deck, the way that it's kind of fallen together. So she is just banned. So green, white, blue for 1/1 legendary creature, Merfolk Shaman. She's a mythic for about $7. And then she has 1/1. Then you get +1/+1 for each enchantment you control. And then whenever you cast your first enchantment spell each turn, draw a card. The reason why I like her and Estrid in the 99 is like she at least is a win con in and of herself, right? She can be a grain. She's going to get huge with all these auras that you have. You always have a good thing to attach it to. She also is pretty low cost. So getting her out kind of helps you build your value train. And I've seen a friend of the show, Tice, who I haven't talked to in like 6 months, unfortunately. He has a deck built with this that's very similar in scope of what you have. And it is brutal. It just takes off. She's just dealing damage. She's drawing all these cards. Just something to think about if you want to try to swipe it up and maybe make this deck a little bit more exciting, or at least try it once.
Yeah, I think the only issue I have with that is, one, I would have to get more ways to play enchantments at flash to take advantage of her second effect. Two, I'd have to probably cut out 20 or so of the creatures so I could get more enchantment auras in there for her. Because a lot of the creatures, I'm trying to spread the auras and stuff around, and then use Estrid's ability to untap them and kind of do some like things with that. So I hear the idea, and this is one that I've heard of Tuvasa decks before. I believe Max from Commander Central actually has a Tuvasa deck that he talks about a lot. And I think the biggest thing that I don't like about it is that it feels too Voltron. And technically, Tuck, and you know this deck was built from the pieces of my Rafik of the Mini deck, which was a Voltron
deck. Which was another Voltron.
Which I couldn't do it in Bant. Like, I couldn't figure out how to do Voltron in Bant.
Yeah, couldn't crack the code.
So that would be my only reservation against it. But maybe I'll just swap them one day and just see what happens.
Just see what happens. Yeah, exactly.
All right. So for our cuts and ads, guys, I'm going to start with an under $5 cut, and I'm cutting the Erixmathy Slumbering Isle. So I've already kind of talked about why. It's just a little too slow for me. It's a little too slimy. Mm-hmm. And I think it was just, it was out of time for the deck.
Oh.
But you know what I am going to add?
What?
Out of time. Colorless white enchantment. It's a rare from Modern Horizons 2.
Oh, the new one, yes.
When out of time ETBs, untap all creatures, then phase them out until out of time leaves the battlefield. Put a time counter on out of time for each creature phased out this way. It has vanishing at the beginning of your upkeep. Remove a time counter from this enchantment. When the last is removed, sacrifice it. So
it's so silly.
The solemnity thing, card. Yes, that's a non-bow, but that's irrelevant for this. I want out of time in here because I don't have a lot of board wipes. Mm-hmm. And I do run a fair amount of creatures, but I also run a fair amount of enchantments that can kind of enable me to do other stuff. And I look at out of time similar to a Wrath of God. You don't Wrath of God when you have a board full of stuff that you don't want to lose.
Yeah.
You do it when it's like, I guess I'm going to lose one thing, but BigTuck has Prosh, 18 kobolds, and like all this other screwy. Yeah. Let me out of time this stuff, and potentially those creatures won't come back for 25 turns or 30 turns, or they're just gone forever. So I really, really like this.
Yeah, I agree. I think this is also your. I think this is also your token kind of back out strategy, right? So if someone's going crazy early in the game, they're ramping, they're making a bunch of creatures. The fact that there's only 3 and an enchantment and does everything else you want is kind of a good rate for that. I'm a big fan. I'm interested. I hope you get this and play it because I'm interested to see if this card is actually any good or not, and works the way that we want it to. So do you think you're gonna get this? Did you open one?
Well, remember, I didn't really open any. Just the couple packs that my fiance got me, and I didn't get one. So, but I can get the Modern Horizons 2 promo for $2. So yeah, I've kind of been on a kick this last week of just these micro cards, like $1 here, $5 here. Just like, you know what? Let me just go ahead and grab them. I'm kind of tired of just like keeping a list and waiting for it to get big enough. It's like, if I want the card, just go buy it. I'm not buying singles. So I need to get some juice flowing.
Yeah, I do that all the time on eBay. If I find something and I'm like, oh, interesting. Okay, I'll buy it, right? $2 here, $2 there. So,
all right, Tuck, what are you cutting for under 5? What are you going to add?
Okay, so there's a card in here which is interesting, but I think we can do better. So I believe it's called ichthyomorphosis.
Yes.
I think that's how you pronounce that. 2 colorless and a blue for an enchantment aura. Enchant creature. Enchanted creature loses all abilities and is a blue fish with base power and toughness 0/1. So I love it. There's a bunch of these. There's a bunch of these sort of abilities that are out there, right? And this is your like kind of removal, right?
Yep.
I thought I like the idea of it, but I think there's a card that's just a little bit better and a little more utilitarian, if you will, and recently got reprinted and cost nothing.
Yeah. So ichthyomorphosis for me was purely I don't have an extra. Prison in the Moon. I didn't have an extra one.
Yes.
They're crazy expensive now. They're like $15. And so
I have some news. I have some news for you because we're cutting ichthyomorphosis and putting in Prison in the Moon in.
What?
And you can get one for 50 cents out of the new Forgotten Realms Commander set.
What?
Yeah, believe it.
That's so crazy because I literally was just on TCG Player last week ordering all the stuff for my dungeon deck. This is one that I wanted, and I was like, ooh, that was a little pricey. Maybe it's because like TCG defaulted to like the most expensive version. I see the Eldritch Moon promo is like $10. So yeah, that's crazy. Okay.
Yeah, right here. Easy. Commander in the Forgotten Realms. Yeah, exactly. So for those who don't know, it's enchantment aura, enchant creature, land, or planeswalker. Enchanted permanent is a colorless land with tap, add 1 colorless mana or 1 diamond if you prefer. Lose all other card types and abilities. Just pretty much a strict upgrade. And now, especially that it's 50 cents, which is insane. There's really no excuse not to run this in like a gazillion decks.
I'm probably, when we get done recording, going to go buy like 10 copies of it because there's no reason not to have 10 copies.
Yeah, it's bonkers. It's so good. So yeah, that's my least exciting one of all of them, but one nonetheless.
All right. Well, we'll move on to the under 50, and I'm going to cut a card that I've always felt a little heavy, but I always kept it in because it was part of the commander deck. It's technically the sub commander for the box. I'm going to be cutting Kestia the Cultivator.
Yeah.
Colorless.
Yeah, she was on my list.
Legendary enchantment creature, nymph, mythic. It's a 4/4, and it has Bestow. So Bestow is 3 colorless Bant. If you cast it for the Bestow, it's actually an aura spell on the stack with enchant creature. It becomes a creature again if it's not attached to the creature. So that is kind of cool because if someone murders your whatever Yavimaya Enchantress, Kestia still stays on the battlefield as a 4/4. But if it is bestowed, the enchanted creature gets the +4/+4. And then whenever unenchanted creature or enchantment creature you control attacks, draw a card. It reads very, very well. But I don't think it's really that great.
The only way I would keep this card in is if you went with like more of the Tuvasa build, because you're probably going to be getting that a lot more, and it's a juicy target for Bestow. But this was one I was eyeballing too. It's one that I kind of always looked at, and I've always just been like, I agree with you. I think it reads a lot better than it actually is.
Well, the card I want to add is coming in a shade under $15. It's only been printed once. Magic Origins. We are talking about Starfield of Nyx.
Oh, sure.
So 4 colorless
great.
white enchantment. It's a mythic. At the beginning of your upkeep, you may return target enchantment card from your graveyard to the battlefield. Seems pretty good in a deck that runs 30 enchantments.
Pretty solid, yeah.
And as long as you control 5 or more enchantments, each other non-aura enchantment you control is a creature in addition to its other types and has base power and toughness, each equal to its converted mana cost. So that's where the pseudo-risk kind of comes in around that, because now a Wrath of God does blow up all of your enchantments as well. But I more try to look at it from the positive standpoint of I went from 5 creatures with auras to now 15 creatures, 5 of which have auras. I could still swing, and then my commander, if I still have her as my commander, plus ability literally untaps all of my creatures, and I'm good to go to be able to swing again or protect myself. So I think this is going to impact this deck way more than the Cultivator would.
Yes, I agree with that. And I think that this is something I like the utility of this card too, because I think a lot of people misplay this, and as soon as they draw it, they put it out expecting that they'll have the army to build up from there, right? But for me, I'd rather keep this in hand because like you said, it's a liability, right? I'd rather keep this in hand until I know I already have the artifact army ready to go, clap this down, and then get into the red zone, so I know it's not going to be immediately board wiped or removed or something along those lines for the most part. But yeah, it's really good. Definitely a huge East card in this deck. Just does everything that you're looking for.
All right, Tuck, what are you going to do for under 50?
So I am doing a huge swing for price recently, which is crazy, and actually ordered a single this. So I'm going to cut Unbridled Growth. I understand why it's in the deck. I just, if I have a 1-drop enchantment that's enchanting a land, I would prefer a enchantment that at least gives you a more mana value, right? I'd rather pay 2 for something that at least adds 1 or 2 more mana to it. I get the sacrifice and all that jazz. I just think that might be some better cards out there. And when I was looking through here, I was kind of shocked that you didn't have this already. But then I looked at the price point. Then I looked at the price point again, and was very, very happy. So this is a card, if you don't have it, you should order today, because it's had like it's like 20% of what it used to be. Sterling Grove. What a blowout. So it's a green and a white for an enchantment. It says other enchantments you control have Shroud. They can't be the targets of spells or abilities. Then also 1 sack, search the library for an enchantment card, reveal it, and then shuffle and put that card on top. So this card used to be expensive, like 15, 20 bucks sometimes. It's hot off of its first reprint in forever. In Modern Horizons 2, you can get this card for $2 now. It's insanity. So that's why I was, because I think it's a little bit of a meat and potatoes card, but I wanted to talk about it because the price is so low right now. It has everything that you need. Protects your shit, lets you go get other shit, go on from there. All for 2 mana.
All the shit. It just does it all.
All the shit.
Yeah, no, that's good. I don't really have any reason why I wouldn't add that, especially for $2. I mean, I'll spend $2. I mean, granted, that Invasion copy looks really cool. Like,
I don't, even though I'm a big fan of Seb McKinnon's artwork, and this is not the artwork cast, which I'm sure there's 40 of. You guys can go find that. I do like the old artwork a lot better. I think it looks a lot more magical. This looks a little bit more like a watercolor.
All right, guys.
Which very well may be. I don't know.
On to the last one. Personal recommendations. I'm going to cut a plains. I'm at 36 lands. A lot of times I get mana flooded, especially with all the ways that I can reuse my auras on my lands. So I think 35 is more than enough for me. And plains were the one land that I did put a whole lot of in here. I want to say I have 16 ways of producing white, so I can definitely drop 1.
Sure. Dig it.
Here's what I want to add, though, and Tuck, I love where you kind of set me up a little bit with this. I'm going to add Enchanted Evening.
Oh, okay.
3 colorless, hybrid Azorius. You can pay any combination of white and blue twice. It's an enchantment. It's a rare. There's even the cool Secret Lair one that I can go grab. And it states, all permanents are enchantments in addition to their other types.
What more do you want?
Yep. And so if all my enchantments I control have Shroud except for Sterling Grove, it's like, well, let's play into Enchanted Evening, and my entire board has Shroud. But here's the cool thing, though, is that there's actually some combos you could do with Enchanted Evening and this deck. So yeah, some of these infinite combos that I found, like I have a Johnny's Chosen in the deck. Well, with Enchanted Evening, I make infinite 2/2 white cat creature tokens. And the game goes to a draw because there's no way to end it, which is amazing. Something that I didn't put in the deck, but I'm strongly considering, is Aura Thief. Aura Thief's put into a graveyard from play. I gain control of all enchantments, which is the entire board. You could also do Calming Verse. Calming Verse is an awesome sorcery. Destroy all enchantments you don't control. Then if you control an untapped land, destroy all enchantments you control. Well, just tap out your lands and boom, you killed everything. And then there's another one, Opalescence. Each other enchantment is a creature with power and toughness, each equal to its converted mana cost. It's still an enchantment. So this is a way to wipe out all your opponent's lands. There's so many cool things I can do with this card. And so I think it's one that I definitely want to add. And then I want to pepper in some of these other weird, like, synergistic things to kind of see which flow I like the best.
Dig it. Love it. It's you in a nutshell. I think Aura Thief is a good card in this deck. So if you don't have one of those, I'd grab it for sure. Yeah, I'm here for it.
All right, Tuck. Well, what is your last one?
Okay. I have two for you. I am going to cut out Righteous Authority. 3 colorless, white and a blue for an enchantment aura. Enchant creature. Enchant creature gets +1/+1 for each card in its controller's hand. Fine. At the beginning of the draw step of enchanted creature's controller, that player draws an additional card. It's fine. I don't like this card because it doesn't give any sort of evasion. And I like the enchantments. If I'm enchanting auras and paying 5 for it, I want it to at least give some semblance of an evasion. I think you're going to be drawing plenty of cards in here. So I really hope those bonuses are coming through for you, Mr. Combo, because
I mean, you did forget I have a wedding to pay for?
I'm going to need about $1,000.
Oh my God.
I'm going to need about $1,000.
Moat?
Yeah, that's pretty much. Drop of Honey.
Oh, you've talked about this card before.
Yes, we have. 1 colorless or 1 green for an enchantment. At the beginning of your upkeep, destroy the creature with the least power. It cannot be regenerated. If 2 or more creatures are tied for least power, you choose one of them. When there are no creatures on the battlefield, sacrifice Drop of Honey. So most of the creatures that you're going to be playing are going to get buffed up by enchantments, are going to get big in and of themselves, like your colossus of the world. So for me, this is going to be a way that you can kind of help stabilize the board in the beginning and middle of the game, right? Picking off mana dorks, picking off drakes, picking off flyers, picking off commanders that are like utility commanders but happen to be the lowest on the battlefield. And it's all for 1 mana. So you're going to be able to get your draw. You're going to be able to get some removal out of it. You're going to be able to, even late game, get your triggers, kind of do your storm thing like you were talking about. So I think this card is a really, really good one and well worth every $900 that you are going to pay for it.
Well, it actually turns out there's a copy on TCG Player right now for $700. So suck it. And I do have a Volk Island extra that I don't need. I wonder if I could find someone to trade with.
A Volk Island?
Volcanic Island? Volk?
Oh, well, okay. So then I actually, now that that's all ready, I actually am going to do you, I've given you the slap. Now I'm going to, or I'm sorry, what is it? The hand? Extend the hand, slap the hand?
No.
Oh, no. The
open hand, closed fist.
I gave you the closed fist. Now I'm going to give you the open hand.
Well, that's confusing. I would think an open hand would come with a Drop of Honey.
Well, it's about to come with a node. So for 32 cents, you can get the exact same card in white. Periphery nodes, 1 white enchantment. At the beginning of your upkeep, destroy the creature with the least power. It can't be regenerated. If 2 or more creatures are tied for least power, you choose one of them. When there are no creatures on the battlefield, sacrifice Porphyry nodes. 32 cents out of Time Shift Remastered.
Oh my goodness. That's so funny. I wonder why this is so much cheaper than Drop of Honey.
Because, Drop of Honey is on the reserved list.
I understand that. I guess more my thing is, why would Wizards, and I get it, they did it during Planar Chaos, or they're trying to color shift stuff. Yeah, that's just confusing to me. I don't understand, like, how, because not everything on the reserve list is worth $1,000. There's plenty of stuff on there that's worth like 10 cents.
Okay. Yeah. It's like, That's what I'm saying. Isn't that funny?
Yeah, that's
like it's
ridiculous.
the exact same. It's the exact same card for whatever thousands % cheaper. I don't know. The Planar Chaos one used to be like $5 or $6, but then this thing got remastered. I guess people just don't want it. But one of the two of them, I think, would really do a lot of work in this deck.
Yeah, I would agree with that. Or I could get both. Why not?
Why not? Why not both?
And why
America?
America! Thanks for making it until the end. And as promised, here's some details about our giveaway. We'll be giving away the Averna deck discussed in episode 101. To enter, it's super simple. Just promote the content we put out. You get an entry for every interaction you do with us on social media and being a part of our patron community. We will announce the winner on MTG Action 4 News September 1st and our Twitter account soon after. And yes, we'll do these giveaways each month. It just kind of depends on what the crew can come up with, you guys. We would love a 5-star review, a friendly comment, and a subscribe and follow on whatever platform you're consuming us on. And if you'd like to figure out what our social media account names and stuff is, so that way you could chat and interact with us, here's how you could do that. You can reach me at Mr. Comma number 5 on Twitter, all spelled out except for the 5. BigTuck, where can they reach you?
You can reach me at BigTuck Tweeting on Twitter. And this week, there was a very special celebrity birthday. Hold, please. It was very exciting. Harold Perrineau, big star of the Matrix 2 and 3, who replaced one of the tanker dozers. It was his birthday on August 7th.
Oh, my goodness. You can reach our main account at CMD Tower on Twitter as well. We will have a website where the deck list will be posted at cmdtower.com/BNBE103. Basically, just type in Cleansing Nova Martial Coup, Dawn's Reflection, Tower.com. Screamy Key, if people want to find and get a hold of your Mana Lift commentary, how would they do that? He can handle all of your audio needs and does have a full studio if you ever do come to the Kansas City metro area. Just hook him up. And, of course, we can't forget our awesome video editor at _Tcoats. Tyler does a lot of work in the video editing community piece of Magic, working with a lot of other content creators. He does a great job on these YouTube videos, so please make sure you subscribe to YouTube. Let him know how we can improve this, because we want to continually evolve our YouTube channel to make it, what you guys want. Now, if you'd like to help out financially so we can continue to improve the content, like recently we've upgraded our streaming computer so we can actually start doing Twitch streams, you should head over to our Patreon, patreon.com/CMDTower. We have many different tiers, from as simple as Discord access and all the other soft things we give you for $1 a month, all the way up to $25. And yes, my voice cracked, where you get a pack of sleeves, you get a playmat, you get a coin, you get reminder tokens, you get monarch tokens. We give you a whole lot of crap. Plus, guys, don't forget, $5 and up on the tier, you become a part of the RK Post patron community. So every 3 months, we send you guys out a myriad of exclusive patron RK Post tokens that he has signed. It's pretty cool. And of course, Redacted Bit music. So, BigTuck, Estrid's Mini Masks. How do you feel about this? Because I don't know if I'm excited to play the deck still at the end of this.
Wow, it just started pouring rain here.
I guess you're not going on a run.
Yeah, I guess not. I guess I might as well just get blind drunk instead.
Hell yeah.
So I think that if you want to get excited to replay this deck, you really need to like a big change up, right?
Yeah.
And that's why I was really pushing for trying to Vasa as a separate commander, right? Like, I think even with the cuts, I think the cuts that we had, and especially the ones that you had with like the combo stuff, I think plays more to your style. But I just kind of feel like that will be, I have nothing against this deck. I've seen it played before. I think it's fair. I think it's balanced. I think it's got a lot of interesting play into it. I just think you kind of, if you want to try something different, it's kind of like what I've been doing with my decks, tearing them apart, rebuilding them, trying out new commanders, kind of giving it one last run. Maybe that might be the way to approach it if you really want to switch it up and try to get it to something that's wildly different than what you'd done before, right?
Yeah, I think it might even be just one of those things where Bant just doesn't have legends at the moment that really interest me.
Yeah. I agree.
But very similar to Esper. And honestly, the only reason Esper even interests me is because I wanted to build dungeons, and literally the Esper commander does dungeons. So,
right.
Yeah, I don't know. I think it might just also be a little bit of Bad blood. Oh, I better stop singing or T Swift is going to shut us down. So
yeah, that's how we get DCA.
Yeah, so I think it might be a little bit of that too, to where I've just built up this negative connotation with the deck. Like, oh, this deck's boring. Oh, this deck sucks. Like even on 40 Life at a Dash last week that I was on, and I talked about Oloro getting up to 96 life and commanding the Dread Hoarding, spending like 30 life to take everyone's creatures. Like that's a really cool move. But even that, it was like, meh, okay, whatever.
Yeah.
So I may take your advice. I may break this down and just say, okay, at its core, what are the pieces I have here? I think the issue is now going through this, Tuck, same thing's going to happen with this as Oloro. You look at it, my Esper staples are like 7 or 8 cards, and I still have to build a whole brand new deck.
Yeah. Yeah, totally. And I agree. Like for me, like I just got lucky with Arcades as a band commander, or else I still have no idea what I would have built.
Yeah. All right, guys. Well, we're getting the hizzy up out of this Nizzy by Rizzy.